How's it going, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back. So I'm really excited tonight to finally bring back another video. I've been off for about a week or so, but this idea actually came from another YouTuber. The original Fuzz. This YouTuber, he has like almost like 7,000 subs now, and he has only has like 77 videos or 71 videos. So it's amazing that his channel has grown that much. I would love to have that happen, but I have to definitely keep improving. But so this idea is it's something I've thought about doing for a long time, but I thought this would be almost impossible to do. But it's basically to come up with my top 25 favorite movies of all time. So this is like like over like hundreds of movies. So it's like how do I really narrow this down? And for me, really, I love the decades of like the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. Because think about it, I was born in the 70s, but I really was a young kid in the 80s, and I was in my my early adulthood in the 90s. So that definitely that period is the most influential in my life, as far as movie watching. So I definitely want to just focus on those decades because, like I said, to come up with 25, you have to kind of narrow it down. Just the ones that basically the ones that are like the most rewatchable, like the most have the most like nostalgia for me. Those are the ones I stuck with. So there's lots of great movies that I left out of my list. Please feel free in the comments to let me know some movies that I've left out. And believe me, a lot of these have been a lot of movies were on my list and had to be taken off because I thought I like these movies a lot more than that. So and some movies are like newer. It's like movies that have stuck with you for 30, 40 years of your life. Those are the ones that are going to be your favorites because the ones that are, like I said, most rewatchable. Okay, starting at number 25. This is one from 1994. The movie is Clerks, and obviously it's the last one here on my this three disc set. Clerks, Kevin Smith. It's one of those movies I was like 21 in 1994. So this movie's definitely going to leave an impression on me. I love the humor in it. This is a movie Kevin Smith basically maxed out his credit cards to make this movie. So critics love this. It's probably his most this and Chasing Amy, the top one here, are probably the ones that critics have liked the most. But for me, it's the original. Definitely the original is the one I love the most. Okay, number 24 from 1981, I have An American Werewolf in London. This is from director John Landis. This one I probably saw way too young. I probably saw it like 82, 83 because at that time I was like 8 or 9 years old. Just seeing a movie like this was really scary. It's got a lot of humor in it, but it's really dark humor. This one, my aunt and uncle had cable back then, so they had like HBO, so you can get a lot of movies like this. Probably a year or two after they were released in theaters. Unlike now, where you can see movies like within like 2 or 3 weeks. That kind of thing. You used to have to wait a long time, and the rumor mill would be around, and you couldn't wait to see these kind of movies. But I love, Rick Baker did the werewolf transformation, and it's one of the greatest transformations of all time. It's done in camera. So this movie, I always enjoy watching this. I was glad to get this the Blu-ray release. It's on 4K now too, but I love this movie. So at number 23 for 1984, I have Ghostbusters. For me, it's always been the original. I like a lot of stuff in the franchise too, but for me, it's always been the original with Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd. It's got Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson. Got a great cast. I love the humor in this movie. It's definitely it's sort of it's a scary movie, but it's also it's stuff. It's like a PG rated, so it's not too scary for kids. And it's one that's for me, it's definitely nostalgia, and it's a reason why I keep seeing the movies in the franchise. But for me, it's always the first one that's always the best one for me. At number 22 for 1978, I have Dawn of the Dead. This is one I saw later basically in the 90s. I didn't see it back obviously in the 70s. I was like 5 years old in 1978, so I definitely didn't see it then. But it's one I saw later in life. I really wasn't into like zombie movies and probably till like the late 80s or so. But this one's from George A. Romero, obviously one of the great zombie directors of all time. Just to me, I like this even more than the original Night of the Living Dead. For me, this one's in Night of the Living Dead was in the late 60s. It was in black and white. This one's in color. But I love that whole atmosphere. I remember like in the early '80s, I remember shopping malls still looked a lot like the way they did in Dawn of the Dead. A lot of them hadn't been renovated yet. So at number 21 from 1982, I have Fast Times at Ridgemont High. This is on the Criterion Collection. It's spine number 1075. This movie is definitely great. It's from Cameron Crowe. He wrote the screenplay for this. He was basically a guy that looked so young, even into like his 40s. He still looked so young, and he could pass for a high school kid. So he did some research when he in like one of the high schools back then. It's directed by Amy Heckerling. Love the cast in this. It definitely has an iconic scene in it that any young boy would definitely remember the most. So that's why that impression has stayed with me over the years. And I love the humor. Sean Penn's really great in this movie as Spicoli. I just love the humor. It's definitely nostalgia, and it's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. So, and one of the greatest comedies I've ever seen as well. At number 20, also from 1982, I have Poltergeist. This one I've definitely seen since I was a kid. It's a PG-rated movie. It's directed by Tobe Hooper. Obviously he did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first two movies. He did those, but a lot of people. This is Steven Spielberg is the executive producer for this, and a lot of people believe that he directed a lot of this movie. He was there on set a lot, and I think he had a huge influence on Hooper as far as the way he filmed the movie. And a lot of people said that Spielberg was behind the camera sometimes, and so they said he was definitely a presence on the film crew. And so it's hard to believe that Tobe Hooper directed all this movie, but he's definitely the one that gets the credit for the movie, though. At number 19 for 1991, I have The Fisher King. This is from director Terry Gilliam. He's obviously from Monty Python. Huge fan of them. This is also from Criterion. It's spine number 764. This is one Robin Williams and Jeff Bridges. Mercedes Ruehl. She won an Oscar for her part in this movie. This is one that I saw later. Obviously 1991, so I saw it sometime probably in the mid to late 90s. I've always loved the humor in this movie. It has everything they really love about Terry Gilliam, and it's definitely more of a Hollywood movie, more of like a feel-good movie, but it's definitely got some dark themes in the movie too. Definitely has Terry Gilliam leaves his mark in this movie, but he didn't write the story for this, but overall, Robin Williams, just to see a movie with Robin Williams in it, it's definitely a nostalgia. At number 18 for 1979, I have The Warriors. This is from director Walter Hill. I've always loved The Warriors, man. I've owned The Warriors so many times on different times on DVD. I had the director's cut, which I didn't like as much. But this one actually has the director's cut and the original theatrical cut, so it's kind of fun to watch them both and have the option which one you want to see. But I've always loved The Warriors, and just that whole dark kind of theme in the movie, and the kind of the danger element in the movie. And there's definitely one scene in the movie where one of the warriors, what happens to one of the gang members at the time. It's very scary. It definitely made the movie. You take it really seriously because something happens in the movie that's it's really dark, and it's as a result of kind of as a sort of a dispute with the actor at the time. But I've always just loved the journey from going from one part of New York and having to take subway trains to get to Coney Island. That whole thing, just the survival element in the movie. At number 17 for 1981, I have Raiders of the Lost Ark. Obviously, for me, it's always been about the original. I definitely like the third one in the franchise, and the second one's not bad either. None of the movies are really bad. For me, it's definitely the original. It's directed by Steven Spielberg. It's written by George Lucas. It's the whole theme. Starring Harrison Ford, iconic, heroic kind of character, and one of my favorite actors of all time. So for me, this is definitely the one that I've grown up with the most, and for me, the effects in this movie are really great. And so at number 16 for 1996, I have Fargo. I just couldn't leave the Coen brothers off my list. Obviously Joel Coen directs all these movies, but Ethan Coen's his brother and the co-writer a lot of these movies, and so they're definitely a great team. I love Frances McDormand's really great in the movie. William H. Macy, it's Steve Buscemi, really fantastic in the movie. Just a really dark kind of humor overall. It's just the story is really dark. I love that the way the Coen brothers kind of make movies like this. Definitely more mainstream for people, but they keep keep the integrity together, and so I think it's one of their best. At number 15 for 1993, I have the original Jurassic Park. Obviously, another Steven Spielberg movie. The original is definitely the best one for me. I like a lot of stuff in the franchise, but for me, I'm keeping it with the original. I think that movie was so iconic, and so it changed everything. Basically, makeup effects kind of changed because of them. CGI effects changed because of them. It changed the industry completely. Just the stuff that Industrial Light and Magic did. For better or worse, it definitely changed everything. And so for me, it's an iconic movie. And it's the original is the one I always come back to. At number 14 from 1988, I have Die Hard. This is one I usually only watch in December. For me, I could watch this movie at any time, but it's one I always watch during the holidays. Because it has a holiday theme. People have argued for years if this movie is a Christmas movie or not. It was released in July of '88, so it was released during the summer. So it was meant to be a summer blockbuster, but I could watch it really any time. But Bruce Willis. This is definitely when his career was really taking off at the time. This is a movie that really made him a star, from being a television star to being a movie star at the time, and it made him also an action star too. So for that, Hans Gruber, the whole thing. Alan Rickman's really great villain in the movie. To me, I love every scene in the movie, and to me, it's a classic. So at number 13 for 1994, I have Pulp Fiction. This is definitely the movie that made Quentin Tarantino a star. This is his second movie. It has this great non-linear kind of story. This movie also has Bruce Willis in it as well. This is like a comeback story for John Travolta. Samuel Jackson's really great in this movie. It has Uma Thurman. Obviously, she's the one on the cover here. It made her a star really too. She had done some movies before that, but this is the one that people really noticed her in. And so I love the story, and it's my favorite from Tarantino. I think it's definitely the best out of his filmography, and it's the one he's best known for, and it looks great on 4K. So at number 12 from 1985, I have Back to the Future. This is definitely it's another one from Spielberg was the executive producer for this, and it was directed by Robert Zemeckis. Bob Gale, one of his writing partners, wrote it and co-wrote it, and this is Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Just a fun movie. For me, it's definitely the original that I love the most. The second and third ones aren't bad, really, but for me, I always come back to the first one. To me, it's the most iconic and the most fun. So this is the one I love the most out of the franchise. Okay, so at number 11 for 1999, I have another game-changing kind of movie. The movie is The Matrix. This is from the Wachowskis. This movie, for me, it's always been the original. That's why I bought this on 4K. I bought just the original. I actually got rid of the other ones. They're ones I just never watched. For me, the original is the one that was a groundbreaking kind of movie. It's the one that I love the most. It's the one I always rewatch. I never rewatch any of the other ones. So for me, I had to get this one. But as far as visual effects, this one changed everything. Even just like Jurassic Park did in 1993, this one took it even further. So for me, that's why it's the most memorable and iconic. Okay, at number 10, so this is my first cheat. I had to put these together. This is actually both from James Cameron. From 1984, I have The Terminator. And from 1991, I have Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Obviously Arnold made him a huge star. The first one made him a huge star. Obviously, he had done like Predator before this, but some great movies. He was a great action star, especially in the 80s and 90s. Arnold did some great stuff, but I had to put these two together. I just had to kind of cheat a little bit because this movie is definitely more of like a horror movie, and this one's definitely more of like an action movie. But since James Cameron wrote them both, really the first two are the only two that I really love in the franchise. So at number 9 from 1978 from John Carpenter, I have Halloween. This is definitely an iconic movie. It's my favorite in the franchise. I like the first 3 Halloween movies. A lot of people like the entire franchise, but for me, I like the ones that I just kind of grew up with. Those are the ones I like the most. So you definitely like Rob Zombie's movies and like the last 3 movies in the franchise. You can like those as much as you want there. But for me, it's definitely the first 3, and the original is the best in my opinion. It's the one that that John Carpenter. It's the only one John Carpenter ever directed. So that's probably the reason why I like it the most. And so for me, number 9, I had to put Halloween. Okay, at number 8 for 1991, I have The Silence of the Lambs. It's a great movie. It's from director Jonathan Demme. This is actually the second movie in the franchise. The first one was Manhunter, and that one Michael Mann definitely didn't want to go in the horror direction. For me, this movie is definitely more of a horror movie, even though it's considered to be a thriller. You can let me know in the comments if you think it's a horror movie. People have debated that over the years. But Anthony Hopkins is really great as Hannibal Lecter. I thought he's better than what Brian Cox was as a Lecter in Manhunter. I thought Anthony Hopkins definitely took that role to the next level. He won an Oscar for that part. Jodie Foster's really great. She won an Oscar for her part in the movie. Buffalo Bill, that character. So I think it definitely has horror elements in it. It's just maybe a little too highbrow. Being an Oscar winner, maybe a little too highbrow to be a horror movie. But I think it's one of the greats. It's in the Criterion Collection as well under Spine Number 13. So it's one of the really early Criterion. So to me it's iconic movie, and it's one I watch all the time. Okay, at number 7 for 1980 from Stanley Kubrick, I have The Shining. This is starring Jack Nicholson's really great in this movie. Shelley Duvall, fantastic in this. It's really scary, based on a Stephen King book, which obviously Stephen King for a longest time definitely didn't like what Kubrick did with his story, but the book and the movie are definitely completely different. Some similarities, but Kubrick kind of made it his own. He took the book and made it a film. He made it really scary, and Jack Nicholson's actually the big part that definitely sells the whole movie. How nutty this character goes throughout in this isolation in this hotel. So this is one I've watched over the years, and to me it's really scary. So at number 6 for 1982, I have The Thing. This is from another one from John Carpenter. I've got two movies from Carpenter in my top 10. So this is one that's Kurt Russell's really great in this movie. It's another isolation kind of movie. Another one that takes place in snow. Rob Bottin did a great job with the creature effects in this movie. So at number 5, I have another cheat here. This is one from another franchise from 1979 and 1986. I have Alien and Aliens, the first two in this franchise. For me, those are the only ones I really like and really love in the franchise. Obviously, Sigourney Weaver's the star of these movies. She's really great. Ellen Ripley is the character. Ridley Scott directed the one in 1979, the original Alien. And then James Cameron came along in '86 and directed Aliens, the sequel. For me, I had to put the two together. For the longest time, on my list, I had these two separated, but I thought I got to keep these two together. It's part of a franchise. But even though I'm not as big a fan of like the Predator, Alien versus Predator movies, and all the stuff Ridley Scott's done with the prequels and stuff like that. Yeah, for me, it's always the first two movies in the franchise that I rewatch quite a bit. And the ones I grew up with and the ones I love the most. So number 4, this one might shock people. From 1975, I have Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I'm a huge Monty Python fan, just like I mentioned Terry Gilliam earlier. This is one iconic movie. So many quotable lines in this movie. It's one I can watch over and over and quote everything. People complain about the ending to the movie, how kind of cheesy it is. But if anybody has ever watched the Monty Python TV series, will know that fits perfectly with their kind of humor. So for a Hollywood movie, this is one that's actually it's co-directed by Terry Gilliam and as Terry Jones, which for me, in my opinion, I've always thought that Terry Jones was probably the primary director on this, because for me, like you see Terry Gilliam in front of the camera so much. He plays the Patsy character, and he's on in front of the camera so much that's like, for me, when he's on camera, that's probably when Terry Jones is directing. And so in the other way, sometimes the character that Terry Jones is playing has like the mask over his face. So to me, Jones probably directed most of the movie, and Gilliam just directed some of it, and just kind of got some experience before he did Jabberwocky next. And actually, Terry Jones is the one that did Life of Brian. He's the only one that directed that movie. So, but that's always been my opinion, but I've never had anything definitive on that. Let me in the comments if you think Terry Jones was the primary director on that. So So at number three from 1972, I have The Godfather. Really, the first Godfather. I like the second one as well. The first Godfather is 72. The second one's in 74. Really, you could put the first two together, but for me, the really I'm putting the original. That's the one I love the most. The one I watch the most. It's like just under 3 hours long, and the sequel is like 3 hours and 20 minutes long, and then I don't really like the third one all that much, but for me, it's always the first one. I think Al Pacino is really great in the movie. Marlon Brando is really fantastic. So definitely the original Godfather is the best one in my opinion in the franchise. Some people can argue that. I'm sure some people would say Godfather 2 because De Niro in the sequel was so great in that movie, and he won an Oscar for that part. So yeah, you can definitely make that argument. For me, it's definitely the original. So at number two for 1975, I have Jaws. This is an iconic movie. I have to watch it every July 4th weekend. Obviously, and Spielberg this is the one that really made him a big time star at the time. This was like one of the first like summer blockbuster movies. One of the great ones. I think it's great the fact that you don't see the shark a lot in the movie because they had so many problems with the mechanical shark at the time. I think it kind of adds to the eeriness of the movie, the fact that you don't see him a lot. But obviously, Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw is really great in the movie. Richard Dreyfuss really fantastic in this. That team. A lot of the guys in the movies didn't like each other. As far as in the characters didn't like each other, but they were big time friends off camera. But this kind of bond that they kind of made there near like in the third act of the movie. But while really kind of hating each other as well, or at least the two of them are hating Robert Shaw's character, the whole thing. But Quint in the movies. But this is one of the great iconic movies that has stood the test of time. Almost 50 years old now, so iconic. Okay, so at number one, so obviously I had to make a big time cheat here. To me, it's I love the first two movies in this original trilogy. But the third one's not bad either. But it's from 1977 through 1983. I have the original Star Wars. I have Empire Strikes Back, and then I have Return of the Jedi. But for me, I think that my favorite one in the franchise is Empire Strikes Back. You can kind of I don't really watch the prequels all that much, or the sequel trilogy all that much either. I watched a lot of stuff from Star Wars, and even though a lot of us are kind of burned out on Star Wars now, to me, the Empire Strikes Back is probably my favorite movie of all time. But obviously, you can't really deny the impact that the original Star Wars had. That it was the second biggest summer blockbuster that knocked Jaws off its pedestal just like 2 years later. So I had to make this original trilogy a big time cheat because I love the original trilogy the most in the Star Wars franchise. So that's how I had to make it there. For a long time on my list, I had Empire Strikes Back number one. I had like Star Wars like number two, but I decided to just put the original trilogy at number one. I think if I had Return of the Jedi, I'm not sure if this one would even make my top 25 if I had it. And I know a lot of people love Return of the Jedi. I think it's a great conclusion to the story, to the original story anyway. Obviously the original Star Wars was just called Star Wars originally, and then it became Episode 4, A New Hope, and then they made Empire Strikes Back as Episode 5, and this one's Episode 6. But for this is the one that I think it's basically the way they conclude that original trilogy is what's really great about it. But I think to me it's definitely the most the kid-friendly movie of the franchise with the Ewoks and all that stuff. So let me know in the comments if you like Return of the Jedi more than the other two movies. It's up to you. You like what you like, and I like what I like, and so this is a lot of fun to do, and this is all really just for fun. All right, everybody, I really appreciate you watching tonight. Like I said, this is just really just for fun. This stuff, you can definitely pick the stuff apart and say, why was this movie on your list? Why wasn't this movie on your list? That whole thing. But obviously, I wanted to keep it, like I said, with the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I had to make some cheats to fit some movies in with some of the franchises. I had to do some of that, but this is a lot of fun to do. Please, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing that. Please put a thumbs up on this video. It definitely helps with the YouTube algorithm. And everybody, have a great one. Thank you.